Hello everyone and welcome to the Affluentry Network National Registration. My name is Robert Travis and I serve as the Chief Marketing Officer here for Affluentry, and I welcome you to the Affluentry Network National Registration. We are going to get started with our national registration in the next 5 minutes, so please stand by. Again, we're going to get started with the Affluentry Network National Registration in a little under 5 minutes. Please stand by. Alrighty everyone, welcome back and welcome again to our Affluentry Network National Registration. Our national registration is actually the second part of our 3-part fast track system, which is designed completely in mind of our new people coming into the company so they can get orientated, registered, and trained as fast as possible to get started with our awesome opportunity. I am honored and blessed really to be able to guide you through our national registration because this is the most interactive and really I like to try to make it the most exciting of the 3 steps regarding fast track system. If you are here, it usually means a few things. I always like to start off by letting people know if they are here, if you're listening to my voice, what does that mean? Okay, well, let's go over that. First things first, if you are here at national registration, that means that you have attended at least one national orientation with our company CEO, Gospel Jackson. Now, following that national orientation, you contacted your supervisor, who then gave you the information for you to access this registration. Along with that information to access this registration, your supervisor should have also equipped you with what we call a welcome email. If you do not have this welcome email, if you're not familiar with what I'm speaking of, please use these next 90 seconds to contact your supervisor, whether it be via phone, via email, and say, hey, I'm over at National Registration with Robert Travis. He tells me I need a welcome email. I didn't get it from you. I need that. That welcome email is very imperative to you getting through our fast track system, especially with this phase 2 being your national registration. At this point, if you do have your welcome email, hold on to it. Don't go look at it right now because I'll guide you to it. But for the meantime, it's just good to know that you do have that information available. If you have your welcome email, if you're familiar with this, and if you attended at least one national orientation with Gospel Jackson, please type I in the chat. Okay, again, if you have attended at least one national orientation and you're here with your welcome email, please type I in the chat. Okay, thank you. I see you there. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Now, for those of you who have not received your welcome email, again, contact your supervisor, and there are one of 2 ways you can proceed. Option 1, you can continue to listen to my voice. You can continue to follow through with our national registration. And from that point, when you do get your welcome email from your supervisor, you can complete the registration process then. Or you can go get that information from your supervisor immediately and then return to one of the following national registrations we have scheduled. Okay, so now that everyone has that taken care of, let's get into the rules and regulations. Always, as someone who likes to have fun, as someone who is, actually the youngest executive here in the company, I am all about fun, but within every amount of good fun, you always have to have a good rule. Rule 1 is follow the leader. Okay, one of the problems we have here with national registration is that as we're going through the process of what we're covering, we have people who want to jump ahead. And guess what happens? If you jump ahead and leave the flock, and then you run into an issue or you have a question, well, I can't help you or answer that question until I get the rest of the group there. So please follow along with me, follow the leader. Rule number 2, a lot of times people want to go ahead and try to do the information as I'm talking. They want to complete everything that we're talking about because they don't want to miss a beat. But what I am telling you is you don't have to worry about that. The way our national registration is set up, I'm actually going to show you everything that you're going to do, and then there will be allotted time within our registration for you to go do that. And we actually give you some cool background music to listen to while you do it. So watch first and then act later. Watch everything I show you, follow along, and then use the allotted time afterward to go through the process. Rule number 3, make sure you write down your questions and ask them confidently, okay? At the end of every segment that we go through, we're going to go through 3 total segments, but at the end of each segment, we're going to have what we call common Q&A, and then that's going to be your allotted time to get this work done. Now, while you're getting the work done that's necessary for national registration, you will also have the opportunity to ask me questions. So please ask your questions and ask them confidently. The goal and purpose for national registration is that by the time you hang up the phone or by the time you leave this webinar, you are completely equipped and fully aware of what's necessary for our national registration. And we really hope that by the time you leave this webinar, you yourself have registered with our partnering advertising network so you can go ahead to our national training and get to the money, get to the dollars, right? Which is what we're all here and what we're all about. And our final rule, 4th and final rule, is be excited. Okay, like I said, guys, I try to make this as efficient and as clear cut as possible. We'll laugh, we'll have a few jokes here and there. I'll try to put a smile on your face at least once. But really, I want you to be excited because at the end of this process, if you follow along with me, you complete these phases that we're going to go through for our national registration, it will lead to money in your pocket, period, point blank. And if that's what you're here for, if that's what you've been looking for, then this is really the webinar, this is the process, this is the phase that you were looking forward to so much from national orientation. So with all that being said, let's get to it. So now we're heading into our registration overview. If you heard me earlier, you heard me say that we're going to go through 3 total phases here for our national registration. Again, 3 total phases. Phase 1 is registration. Okay, we're going to register for your particular advertising network. Phase 2 is going to be the most interactive phase that we do, and that is product training credit number 1. Again, at National Orientation, you learned about the 2 product training credits. Here at National Registration, we're only going to cover product training credit number 1, so please follow along. And then finally, phase 3 is the easiest phase, but ladies and gents, it is the most important, okay? Phase 3 is verification. Now, the reason why I say this phase is the most important is because if you do this phase incorrectly, you risk the chance of not getting paid. And I don't know about you, but I really like my money and I really like getting paid. And the last thing I want is to do something incorrectly that results in my money being held up and, me not getting paid. So if you're like me, type I in the chat. Thank you. Okay, a few people are like me, so I'm glad to know. So make sure you pay attention to all the phases, but most importantly, pay attention to phase 3, where we're going to verify who you are as an employee. So there's our 3 phases, and let's roll right into phase number 1, which is our registration. Now, earlier when we first started, ladies and gents, you heard me mention something called a welcome email. I want you to open up a separate tab or window, and I want you to go to your Gmail account. Okay, everyone should be doing this right now. Go to your Gmail account, go to your email account, wherever you have an email account at. I want you to go to your email account, and I want you to find your welcome email. Once you have found your welcome email, once you open it up, please come back, return to our webinar, and type I in the chat. Or better yet, let's mix it up. Type ready in the chat, okay? Let's type ready in the chat. So once you go over to that separate tab or window, and once you open up and find your welcome email, you just leave it there, don't touch it. Come back over to our webinar and type ready in the chat. Okay, thank you. I see a few people already. We're still going to wait on a few more. So guys, this is something really quick. We're only going to stay here for about another 30 seconds. So right now, everyone go get your welcome email, open it up, come back over to the webinar and type ready in the chat. Okay, I see a few more readies. Okay, great. So it looks like just about everyone is ready to go. Again, if you have not received your welcome email at this point, you have one of 2 options. You can either A, continue along just listening as to what we're going to do and what you're going to have to do through registration, or B, what you can do is contact your supervisor and return to a later scheduled national registration. Really, if I were you, I would stay here since I'm already here, and then you can always just come back for assistance on another one of our scheduled national registrations, or you might even get enough information, knowledge, and nuggets for you to go and register yourself. Really, it's up to you, but you're here, so you might as well get the information while it's hot, right? All right, everyone has their welcome email, it looks like, so let's continue forward. Okay, so I know right now you're following along still with the webinar, but your welcome email, when you open it up, your supervisor, every supervisor out there is different, so they may include a different type of introduction or may tell you a little extra information at the top, but for the most part, in your welcome email, every welcome email is equipped with a list of steps. Okay, every welcome email is equipped with a list of steps. Now, my list of steps right here is just a generic version. Your welcome email may look identical to this. It may look completely the reverse of this. Somewhere in that welcome email, there is a list of steps. And this is where the true gold is in your welcome email, because this really is the information you'll need to get through our national registration. So let's follow along with these steps. Again, ladies and gents, you don't have to do anything extra. I'm actually going to break these down very clearly, and remember our rules. Watch first, act later. So step 1, and again, folks, this is just my example generic email, so your steps might even be in a different order than mine. But really, I would like for everyone to be able to use their context clues here. If your steps are out of order from mine, just piece them together, follow along with the flow. But once we're done, you should have a complete understanding of how these steps function. So the first thing we see here, step 1, it says sign into the Affluentry Connection Center. And what is the Affluentry Connection Center? How many of you here are familiar with the Affluentry Connection Center at this point? Some supervisors introduce it before this point, some wait. If you're familiar with the Affluentry Connection Center at this point, please type I in the chat. If you're familiar with the Affluentry Connection Center at this point, please type I in the chat. Okay, I see a few people are, but then there's always a few people who haven't been introduced to it yet. So I'm going to show you that really quickly. If you're not familiar with the Affluentry Connection Center at this point, please make sure you head over there at the conclusion of this webinar. Okay, at the conclusion, don't do it now because I don't want to lose you. But if you're not familiar with the Affluentry Connection Center, please refer to that at the end of this webinar for the full out, explicit, detailed viewing of what's all available there. But in short, Affluentry Connection Center is where all of your training material and tools are at for you to really be successful in this business. In fact, every single piece of information you need to thrive in this opportunity and all the other opportunities that Affluentry Connection supports is available over at the Affluentry Connection Center. Most importantly, the most valuable thing at the Affluentry Connection Center is obviously Affluentry University. Okay, this is where all of the training is broken down. You see here that the training is broken down into the 4 variations of packages that are available at Affluentry Connection Center, and that's the basic, pro, premium, and elite packages. And your supervisor will be able to explain all this more vividly. If you do look at the bottom of the page, and this is just a screenshot of Affluentry Connection Center, but if you look at the bottom of the page, you see there's a tab there that says Main Room. This is where we have a 24-hour chat where you can talk with, if not your supervisor, tons of other supervisors and agents that span across multiple opportunities who all congregate together at the Affluentry Connection Center. One way that we refer to the Affluentry Connection Center is, Affluentry Connection Center is similar to an airport, an international airport of internet income opportunities. So don't be surprised if you go there and people are talking about the advertising networks, or they may talk about, opportunity A, B, C, whatever the opportunity that is supported by Affluentry Connection is available there. But right now for you are focused on the advertising networks and the registration for the advertising networks. So as we continue forward, one thing I do want to stress is the difference between Affluentry Connection and Affluentry Network. This is something that gets a little lost in translation, so we always like to use this moment to kind of clarify the differences between the two. So first we have Affluentry Connection, and you heard me mention that Affluentry Connection is very similar to an international airport of income opportunities that are available. Within Affluentry Connection, there's also an income opportunity known as the Affluentry Connection Bonus. This is where yourself or even your supervisor can assist other people in finding opportunities that are out there by selling them the available Affluentry Connection packages. Now, the way this works as an opportunity is that any package that you sell, you earn 50% of. So I believe the packages go from free to $10 to $25 to $50. For any package you sell as a connectionist, you would earn obviously $5 on a $10 package, $12.50 on a $25 package, and $25 on a $50 package. And this is all paid out to you on a weekly basis. So that's just another opportunity available for you to make money, and that's ran through Affluentry Connection. Now, Affluentry Network, the income opportunity that is based in Affluentry Network is working in partnership with the advertising networks. Okay, now, how many of you are familiar with advertising networks at this point? If you're familiar with what an advertising network is, type I in the chat. And it's okay, a lot of people aren't really familiar with what these advertising networks are. A few people are. Thank you to those who are. But the advertising networks are broken down really into what we label kind of the big 3, and that is Instant Rewards, Free Treasure Chest, and Arlu to Boot. Now, there are plenty other advertising networks out there, such as Zip Not a Zilch, also known as Z&Z, or My Cash Freebies. I mean, really the list goes on. But the important ones to focus on, really the ones that are most commonly used, are the big 3. And again, here at Affluentry Network, we refer to them as Arlu to Boot, Instant Rewards, and Free Treasure Chest in no particular order. All 3 of them are equally great advertising networks to work with, but these advertising networks, the Affluentry Connection people, the community that works with these advertising networks, are known as Affluentry Network. Okay, so there is a separation between Affluentry Network and Affluentry Connection. We're all under one roof, but it's like these are 2 different departments of one company, if that makes sense. So we just try to clear that up. And again, if that's not too clear for you, I hope I did a good job of explaining, but if it's not too clear, be sure to contact your supervisor and they'll be able to show you the difference between Affluentry Network and Affluentry Connection. Back on track though, just wanted to cover the differences between that. if we look back to our welcome email, you'll see that we already did step 1, which is get introduced to the Affluentry Connection Center. Many of you may have already completed this step, and don't be surprised if your supervisor doesn't even include this as a step, because a lot of times supervisors introduce you to the Connection Center sooner than later. So now that we finished step 1, let's move on to step 2, and that's getting registered for the advertising network. Okay, now this is a very, 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 very important step in your welcome email. The reason why is because this is where every welcome email is unique. Okay, a lot of welcome emails are similar, but at this particular step, every single welcome email is unique in some way or another. Now, the reason why every welcome email is unique at this point is because this is where your supervisor has added the necessary link to get you started working with the necessary advertising network. So a lot of times we get asked, or I get asked, well, Rob, how do I know which advertising network I'm working for? And that's easy. You're allowed to work with any advertising network out there. It's really your preference. To make things easier, we always tell people to get started with the advertising network that your supervisor is currently employed with. And the reason why is because your supervisor is there, they have the experience, they have the in to get you in. Okay, now from that point, you can jump around. I know a lot of people who have gone from instant rewards to free treasure chests, people who have gone from free treasure chests to our loot to boot, and people who have gone from our loot to boot to both of them. So it really doesn't make any difference. You're really going to see the vast similarities between these advertising networks. There's very, very few differences between the three, or even between the entire conglomerate of what is known as advertising networks. The process of what these advertising networks is all, standard, and it's pretty much the same. So you're not really going to lose a lot from switching from one network to the other. But to make things easy and clear, you're going to be working for the advertising network that your supervisor works for. In your welcome email, as you see here on the screen for my step 2, you'll see that it says get registered for the advertising network, and it has a link. Now, folks, do not go to this link. I repeat, do not go to this link. This is just an example. In your welcome email, it may say click here and may be hyperlinked. For those of you who are not computer savvy, hyperlink just means that instead of the link with the long, drawn out, messy stuff on the back, it just says click here or, enter, whatever it may be. That's hyperlink, and that's okay. If not, it may be a link that looks like this, but again, do not use this link because every supervisor has their own unique link. What I want you to pay attention to, though, is within your link, if you do have a long link that looks like this, you should see within there the name of your advertising network. And as you see here within my welcome email, my demo welcome email, within the step that says register for the advertising network, you see that it says instant rewards. If you were listening, you know that instant rewards is one of the advertising networks. So off the top of my head, before I even click this link, I know that I'm going to be working for the advertising network known as instant rewards. Okay, so everyone following me, your welcome email may say free treasure chest, it may say our loot to boot, it may say my cash freebies, it may say miss freebies. I mean, really, it can say any one of those various advertising networks, but if you look closely at that link, it will have the name within there. Do not click the link right now. Again, you should be watching my screen. So for those of you who are tempted to go click the link, just stand by a second, because I'm going to explain everything that's there and what you need to do to get through our first phase, which is registering for the advertising network, before we move forward into our second phase. So if you were to click this link, though, again, you're not clicking it, but if you were to click this link, you're going to be redirected to what we call a landing page. Now, again, this is the Instant Rewards landing page. So for those of you who are going to get started with Instant Rewards, this is what you're going to see. Now, if you're working with a supervisor who's working for, free treasure chests or our loot to boot, really the landing page is a landing page. Really, the only thing that's different is maybe the color scheme, the name of the company, but a landing page all works in the same process. Instant Rewards, they make theirs very clear because they tell you step 1 at the bottom of the page, which is cut off here because of a screenshot. But this is what it looks like. So you see step 1 here, you see step 1 here. So you know it's the same thing. With Instant Rewards, once you click on that step 1, you're going to be brought over to something that says this, and it's going to say choose your free prize. Now this is pre-set up by your supervisor, so you don't need to click anything. And actually, if you look right below that in step 2, it's going to have your supervisor's first name. Okay, this is how you know that your link is correct. Now when the time comes for you to click on a particular sign up link, or for you to click on your registration link, if you do not see your supervisor's name, if you see a name here that is completely unfamiliar, I would contact my supervisor just to make sure everything is okay, because you should see your supervisor's name. So if I were your supervisor, you would see you are being referred by Robert, and then would have my unique user ID number. This is just so that when you get started with the company, you are assigned to your supervisor, and that way your supervisor can help and take care of you. So that's what that number is for. Again, do not use this ID number, because this is just the demo account that we're using today. But once you are here, you see that there is a space for you to enter your email address. Okay, and you're not doing this right now, but once you get on the landing page and you enter your email address, you're going to click next step. Once you click next step, you're going to be brought over to this page right here, or at least a page that looks similar to what you see in front of you now. Okay, this, ladies and gentlemen, is your registration. It is here on this page where you're going to complete our first phase of our national registration, which is registering for your advertising network. As you see here, registering for your advertising network is going to start first with you confirming the email you use to sign up. Okay, so you're just going to re-enter that email, and then the password is very, very important. Okay, this password is very important. Make it something that you remember, maybe even something that you use regularly. And the reason why I say that is because once you get up and working with your advertising network, you're going to be logging in here multiple times per day. Okay, you're going to be coming here often to check your account and order your check and order your money and see what new offers are available. So you're really going to be coming to this page a lot. So make sure that you know that password so you don't ever have to worry about losing access. Whatever that password is that you come up with, you're going to confirm it, and then you're going to complete the rest of the basic information, which includes your name, address, city, state, zip code, country, etc., etc. Now at the bottom here, you see that it asks for a PayPal email address. Now PayPal is the preferred method for getting paid working with advertising networks. However, they do still have the option for you to get a check. Some of the select advertising networks also include straight deposits into your bank account. But for the most part, these advertising networks like to pay through PayPal. It's the most convenient for them. If you have a PayPal email address, go ahead and throw it in there if you already have PayPal. If you don't have PayPal, I strongly recommend that you do get a PayPal, but don't do it now. And don't worry about this form. You can always come back and add your PayPal email address later. So if you don't have a PayPal email address, definitely look into it. If you do have a PayPal email address, now is the time to use it. You're going to go ahead and click I agree to the terms and conditions. If you want to read those, it is a link so you can read through the terms. But once you click I agree to the terms and conditions, your registration process is complete. That's all you have to do for registration. Okay, so let's review really quickly before it's your turn to work. Let's review our phase 1 checklist. Okay, you're going to first and foremost, you're going to go find and locate your welcome email. From that point, you're going to skim through your welcome email and find those section of steps. Okay, you remember the steps we went over. You're going to find a step that is related to registering for your advertising network. You're going to follow that registration link to the network landing page. You're going to enter your email at the bottom of that landing page and click register or continue or whatever that button says at the below of your email. You're going to click that. You're then going to complete the registration page and submit it. Okay, at that point, ladies and gentlemen, you are done with phase 1. So let's just visually see that before it's your time to work. Really quickly, from your welcome email, remember, you're going to find the link that is related to registering for the advertising networks. Once you find that link, you're going to click on it. From there, it's going to take you over to a landing page. Okay, remember this is just the instant rewards landing page, but every advertising network has its own specific landing page. So don't be worried about the look. Just know that the functionality is the same. Once you get to the landing page, you're going to scroll to the bottom of that page where you will see a field of where you can enter an email address. Okay, you want to make sure that if you're working and you're signing up for instant rewards, you want to make sure that it says you're being referred by your supervisor's name. If you're working with any of the other advertising networks, make sure that that number, if your link looks similar to this, make sure that that number at the end of the link matches the same number that is referring you, okay? This is how the system tracks your supervisor, so make sure those numbers align. If they don't, contact your supervisor and inform them that this information is not correct. Once you enter your email address and you click next step, you're going to be brought over to the registration form, okay? And it is here at the registration form where you're going to enter all of your basic information, keeping in mind that your password is going to be very important. Okay, enter your password, your basic information, your PayPal email address if you have one, and then you're going to agree to the terms and conditions. And from there, ladies and gentlemen, you are done with phase one. Okay, you are done with phase one of national registration. Now, this phase usually takes anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes for most, so we're going to play it safe. We're going to give you about 3 to 5 minutes to get this portion done. Once you are complete with phase one, as you know, type ready in the chat. Now, before you go off, common Q&A question 1. A lot of times people ask, can I change my email after I sign up? And the answer is no. And that's only because of the way the system is set up. Once you make your account, that email is going to be associated with your name. So if you plan on making a business email, I would create that before I register for the advertising networks, or I would, if you have one right now, I would use that business email now, because that email account you cannot change. Okay, so that's one of the common questions. Common question number 2, and I already covered it, but at this point, someone always asks, what do I do if I don't have a supervisor? Okay, if you don't have a supervisor, what you want to do is head over to the Affluentry Connection Center, and you want to contact a young lady named Ashley Parker. Okay, she is the company lead supervisor, and she's pretty much responsible for getting you matched with a quality training supervisor. So if you don't have a supervisor at this point, you want to contact Ashley Parker, and she can assist you. Okay, another common question we get at phase one is when it comes to completing the registration form. People want to know, well, where is this information going? What is this for? And again, this is just documentation that the advertising network has for you, because since you'll be working from home, there is no real way for you to come in and complete your employee form and all that jazz. So this is the closest thing they have, and this actually goes to tracking and making sure that you get your money in a orderly fashion. So please make sure you complete the form correctly. Okay, so at this point, everyone go off and complete the steps here for the phase one checklist. Again, you'll have about 3 to 5 minutes to complete the step. At the conclusion of this 3 to 5 minute little break we're going to have for you to complete phase one, we're going to pick it back up and we're going to get into phase 2, which is actually getting our first product training credit. So again, folks, you have about 3 to 5 minutes to complete phase 1, at which point we will pick it back up and continue into phase 2. Take this time to complete the necessary information for registration and or contact your supervisor if you haven't done so yet. And that's only for the people who do not have a welcome email. For those that do, again, complete the step and we will proceed in another 3 to 5 minutes. Welcome back from your first little segment of being able to work. That completes phase one. And just to recap, in phase one, you went and found your welcome email. You found the step that related with registering for the advertising network. You followed the registration link to the network landing page. You enter your email at the bottom of that page and clicked register. And from there, you completed the necessary registration page. So now, if you completed all that, if you're done, type ready in the chat. We don't want to leave too many people behind, but we do want to keep to our time schedule. So if you have completed all of the necessary items that are here listed on the phase one checklist, please type ready in the chat. Thank you for those who are ready. For those of you who need a few more minutes, don't worry. We're not going to get into too much too early, but you do want to pay attention to phase two. This is where you're going to do really the most interaction with the advertising network. So phase one complete, and now we are proceeding into phase two, which is product training credit number one. For product training credit number one, again, I have to reiterate that this is going to be probably the most interactive phase you're going to go through. So please pay attention. So if you followed along up to those steps and you clicked registered, it probably redirected you to a page. Leave that page there. Again, you shouldn't close any windows or tabs out. You should follow along with our webinar, but also follow along and do what you need to do on a separate tab or window. So once you completed your registration and you click continue, you probably saw a page that says something related to the word of offers. Okay, and this is where your product training credit number one is going to be complete. And before we begin our product training credit number one, I always like to try to lead into this with kind of an example story for people to wrap their minds around really what the product training credits are and how they work. And my example starts off with car salesman. Now, how many of you are familiar with car salesmen, okay? How many of you, show of eye in the chat, and thank you for those of you who are familiar. Maybe you know a relative or a friend or an enemy, someone who sells cars. And the reason why I bring up this example is because I had a friend who worked at a car dealership, and this was a very interesting aspect of business that I didn't understand at the time, but now working with product training credits, it makes perfect sense, okay? So my friend who worked for a car dealership, every weekend, he always had a different car, and at first we thought that he was just buying these cars because we knew he worked at a car dealership. But I mean, let's face it, chances are you're not getting paid enough at a high-end car dealership to buy a high-end car. Nevertheless, my friend was still driving around in a new or a different type of car every weekend. And when I finally, had the chance to ask him, hey man, what are you doing to get all these different cars? What he told me was, really, when his company or when his dealership got a new car in order for the employees to be able to really sell the car as best as they can, their employer allows them to take the cars home for a day or for the weekend. Now, the employee is responsible for the gas that they use, and they're obviously responsible for insurance if anything should happen to the car. But long story short, these employers at my friend's car dealership were allowing their workers to really take their products home to try them. And this actually made for great salesmanship, because the one thing that you can really notice from people is the amount of information they have. You can notice that off the confidence. As someone, as myself, who used to work at a Walmart, I used to sell televisions. And when I'm selling the televisions, I was always very aware and knowledgeable of all of the features and the aspects of what the TV provided. But if you went to go buy a TV from someone and they're just reading you the information off of the little stick-it note that's with the TV, that person really isn't providing a lot of information. The whole basis behind product training credits are to allow the people who are working with these products to become familiar with what they offer, with what they entail. Your employer, which is in this case, either Instant Rewards, Free Treasure Chest, or Loot to Boot, or any one of the various advertising networks out there, they are your employer, and they want to make sure that you know your product. You have to know your product in order to be able to sell your product. So in order to make that happen, they've made a requirement of doing product training credits. Now, these training credits are one-offs in the sense that you do them once, you're good for life. You don't have to repeat this. It's not a monthly or annual thing, but the company does want you to experience their products at least temporarily, so that when it comes to you selling these products and services, you are aware of what it takes signing up, what it takes to use them, and what it takes to cancel these products if necessary. These are the three kind of points of interest that you'll do through your product training credit. So back to my friend who was working at the car dealership. He didn't buy these cars. He's not required to keep these cars. Now, if he wanted to buy the car, he could very well set up a finance plan and maybe purchase it if that's what his heart desires. But long story short, he was just sampling these cars out so he can become a better salesman of the car. Because when it comes to selling cars, at least from when he explained this to me, there's nothing like being able to sell a car that you drove before, because you can really break it down, like the way the car accelerates, the way it brakes, the way it handles. These are things that you don't know by just looking at it in the showroom. So that's really the basis behind what we're going to do for product training credit. Regardless of whatever advertising network you're working with, chances are when you saw that offers page, and if you didn't see that offers page, don't worry, I will tell you how to get there. But these offers pages have a long list of different products and services. And just to show you the similarity, this is the offers page that is available. And this is just a snippet. This is just a small sampling. They have pages and pages and pages of different products and services. But this is just a snippet, and this is from Instant Rewards. Here's an example from Arlu to Boot, and here's an example of Free Treasure Chest. So you see, while the layouts are different, the color scheme is different, every one of these advertising networks has the same valuable information. If you look closely, that information is the credit value of the product. Okay, credit value there. You see credit value there, and you see credit value there. The time it takes to credit, right here, the time, and the cost. So if you look, here's the time right there, and there's the cost. There's the cost and there's the time. Over here on Free Treasure Chest, there's the time and there's the cost. So you see that there are vast similarities between these advertising networks. Now, on all of these pages of products and services, now that you registered, you are now what we call an independent representative, which means that for these advertising networks, you're able to sell and really advertise any of these products and services that you see listed here. Really, any product or service that you see listed here, you are allowed to sell and advertise. Now, for your product training credit, the requirement is very simple, okay? The name of the game is very simple. Your first product training credit has to equal a total point value of 1.00 credits. If you look closely at the offers that are listed, you'll see that the credit values vary between 0.65 and 1 and 0.60. If we look over at Arlu to Boot, you see there's 0.50, there's 1 and 1. And if we look at Free Treasure Chest, you see 0.60, 0.15. So you get the gist. Every offer, every product or service has a certain credit point value. Your name of the game, the goal here is to find the product and or products that add up to just 1.00 credit. Okay, now a lot of times it happens in every webinar. We have that one person who says, well, my supervisor told me I had to get 2 product training credits, so I'm going to get 2 product training credits. And guess what? If you're thinking like that, that is completely 100% incorrect. Because what's going to happen is you're going to end up doing more work than what you had to, and it's not going to result into you getting that $20 to $100 that you wanted to get. If you paid attention at National Orientation, you are aware that you're able to get $20 for your first product training credit, and you'll get an additional $80 for your second product training credit, adding up to the total possibility of $100 for your product training credits. And again, as I stated at the beginning of our webinar, we are here to cover just product training credit number 1. Again, just product training credit number 1. Now, again, I have to keep reiterating and redirecting you to the national orientation that you should have attended, because it is there that CEO Gospel Jackson broke down the process of what you're going to do for these advertising networks, and he explained that these offers, these products do cost you a small fee. Now, some of them may be listed as free, but some of them may vary between 50 cents, $1, $2, $3, whatever it may be. Now, if you remember back to my example of my friend who worked at the car dealership, while he didn't have to buy the car, he did have to put gas in the car because he's using it. Now, with you using these products and services, you are not required to keep any of them. I repeat, you are not required to keep any of the products or services. You are simply required to try them. Okay, again, you are simply required to try them. What do I mean by try? What do I mean by try is that, if the product training length, for example, let's look at Gamefly, the trial length is 30 days. You're only required to try these products and services for 90% of the trial length. So if the trial length is 30 days, as it is here with Gamefly, then you're only required to keep this product for about 25 to 28 days. It is at that point that you can decide at that 25 to 28 day range, or that 90% of the trial offer range, you can decide whether you will keep the product or service or if you will cancel it. When I first got started with the advertising networks, I did Gamefly as a free trial. Okay, I did the trial so I can get my product training credit, got a video game in the mail. That was really cool. I liked how the process worked. But then I was able to make the decision on whether I wanted to keep the game and keep the service of Gamefly, or if I wanted to cancel it and still keep my product training credit. It was only $15 a month, so I decided to keep Gamefly as a customer. Realize that if you keep the product past the trial length, you will transition over from a product trial user to a customer. Okay, and when you transition over to a customer, they are going to charge you the customer fee. So for here, Gamefly, the free trial was free for 30 days, but after that 30 days, you have to pay a $15.95 pre-authorized subscription. Okay, that means that what's going to happen here is after the 30-day mark, you're going to have to actually, if you don't cancel it, they're going to assume that you want to keep the product as a customer and they're going to charge you accordingly. This is why it's very important to focus on the 3 focal points that we talked about earlier with your product training credit, and that is finding a product and service and register signing up for it. The other one is using that product and service, and the final one is canceling that service, because you have to be able to coach and educate customers and people through these 3 major points if you want to be successful in this business. Now, the reason why you want to do product training credits is because you will be able to gain an abundant amount of information and knowledge that you wouldn't have known by just researching the product. Case in point, remember I said I use Gamefly. Well, I can tell you now from using Gamefly that the sign-up process is really easy. Once you click on Gamefly here as one of the offers, it's going to take you and redirect you to Gamefly, where you're then going to have to choose your membership type. Again, you're going for the free trial, so you'll choose free trial. At that point, you're going to set up your account, and then you're going to set up what they call a game queue. Okay, what a game queue is pretty much a list of games that you want to have ordered and mailed to your house. Now, this game queue is divided up amongst the different video game platforms. For those of you who are not in my generation and not familiar with video game platforms, those are the Xboxes and PlayStations and Nintendo Wiis that your sons, daughters, nieces, nephews are all crazy about, right? So those are, I should say, the video game platforms. What you're going to do is, if you have a video game platform in your household, you're going to select that video game platform and look at all the abundant amount of video games that are available. From there, all you're going to do is just select whatever video game looks interesting to you and add it to your game queue. And guess what? In a few days, Gamefly sends it in the mail. You get it in the mail, open it, play it as much as you want. When you're done with it, put it back in the envelope, send it back, and Gamefly will send you the next item on your game queue list. Simple as that. Now, if you want to cancel Gamefly, you have to contact their customer service. The number is listed in your profile under customer support. So this is the information that you learn from actually using the product, and this is why the product training credits are necessary. So again, folks, the name of the game here is to find any product or service that numbers up to that total of 1 product training credit. Okay, 1 product training credit. That is all you're going after today. So if you have to do it with 2 products, if you have to do it with 1, whatever your preference is, really my suggestion is to go for the product training credits that are as cheap as possible, that still give you that 1 full credit. Now, if you have to spend a few bucks, it's okay, as long as you adhere to the terms, which is just canceling your trial before the trial ends. You won't get charged extra. But ladies and gentlemen, rules are rules. If it says it's a 30-day trial and you keep it till day 33, don't be upset if they charge you the customer price, because that's in their rules. If you cancel before, they respect that rule and don't charge you anything. So you want to make sure you keep a very, very organized and detailed kind of notation of when you signed up for your products and when the trial lengths are over, so you know when to cancel or keep those products. What you're going to do here for your product training credit number 1 is you're going to find, and this doesn't matter whatever advertising network you're using, you're going to search and find the 1 product or service that you're really interested in, or a couple of the product or services you're interested in that add up to that full 1.00 value, okay, that full 1.00 credit. Once you find that and that 1.00 credit is within your budget, you're going to click on that particular product. Okay, don't do this now, but you're going to click on that particular product or service. Once you click on that product or service, it's going to redirect you to that page. So if you're doing Gamefly, for example, once you click on it, it's going to either give you a prompt that says complete this offer, or it's going to give you no prompt and it's just going to straight redirect you. Either way, whatever happens, once it redirects you to that page, you want to complete all of the necessary information that is there. So it's going to require you to enter your name, your address, all of that information, including if you're choosing a product or service that costs, it is going to ask you for a debit or credit card, but they're only going to charge you whatever cost they have slated there, as long as you cancel the product or service within the trial length. Okay, so enter your card information, and you're going to complete all the necessary information that is associated with that product or service until you reach a confirmation page. Okay, you're going to complete all that information until you reach the confirmation page. Now, once you reach that confirmation page, you're going to leave it up for a minimum of 30 minutes. Now, the reason why is you want that product or service to communicate with the advertising network and let them know that, hey, Robert Travis, John Doe, Jane Doe has completed a product trial for GameFly, for example, and they need their credit. So you have to give them credit for this so they can start making money. Leave that window open for 30 minutes so this can be communicated to the advertising network. And from that point, you're going to return to our webinar. Okay, you're going to return back here to the webinar because it is then time for our third and final phase, which is the verification for your identification. Identification verification, ID verification, whatever you call it, that is our third and final step. So you want to make sure that you get this phase, this step completely done correctly because it is the longest, it is the most interactive. Usually we allot somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes for you to get this process done. For those of you who are choosing to do the products or services that relate to checking your credit score, as you're going through that process, at some point, it's going to give you a prompt that says, get my 3 credit scores. You do not want your 3 credit scores. What you want to do is look to the bottom left or bottom right. There should be a little small text button that says, no thanks, continue to my trial. Now, the reason why you do not want to say get my 3 scores is because if you do get your 3 scores, they are going to charge you to get those 3 scores. And this is why everyone needs to stick together, because it always seems we have that one person per week who will jump ahead too far and they'll end up clicking something wrong and they'll be lost. And if they would have just followed along, it could have been avoided. So again, for those of you who are specifically doing products or services that relate to checking your credit score, make sure when the window prompt comes up that says get my 3 credit scores, you ignore that prompt or you hit no thank you and proceed to my trial. Okay. For everything else, the steps are self-explanatory. Once you click that particular product or service and it redirects you to that product page, you're going to complete all of the necessary information that's available there. Once you complete all of that information, you're going to get to a confirmation page. Okay, you're going to get to a confirmation page that says thank you or congratulations or whatever they say on confirmation pages these days. Nonetheless, you're going to get to this confirmation page. Once you are there, you're going to then head back over to our webinar. And if we're not started back, a lot of times some people get through this faster than others. Again, doing your first product training credit will require about 20 to even up to 30 minutes to get this process done. So if you happen to go and get done early, one thing you can do is once you get to that confirmation page, go check your email account, okay? Because once you get over to that product or service, it's going to ask you for an email address. Go check that email account, and what you're looking for is a confirmation receipt. You want to make sure that you know where this receipt is at, because that receipt is going to be very important if for some reason you do not get your necessary credit. For those of you who might need more than the allotted 30 minutes or need additional assistance, contact your supervisor and have them assist you through this process. Or you can finish out and watch the rest of the webinar, which goes into your ID verification, and then come back to this portion of the webinar at a later date, and or have your supervisor guide you through doing the product training credit. Whatever option you choose, we are coming up on the allotted time that we have available for you to do our phase 2 requires, which is getting your product training credit number 1. Once you're done with that, you're going to return to this webinar one more time, because it'll then be time for us to do our final and most important step, which is our ID verification. Let's see if I can knock out some of the common questions before you ask them. Common question number 1, do I have to use a credit or debit card? Yes, you do. The reason why is because these particular products or services need to verify who you are as a human being. Even if your product or service is free, you may be required to enter a valid credit or debit card. And this is because without this, literally anyone can come to that page and enter your name, email, and have willy-nilly fun time and destroy your credit and reputation. But with banking systems, it is very hard to duplicate and replicate someone's information. So this is why you have to verify, and this is why, especially for the free ones, they still want you to enter a credit or debit card. For the products or trials that cost a few bucks, well, obviously you're entering your information to pay for that trial, while keeping in mind that as long as you cancel your product or service before the trial product end date, 90% of that time you have to use that product. If you cancel within that 10% time afterward, you're not going to get charged extra. But going back to the example, if you have a product that has a 30-day trial and you keep it for, let's say, 31 days, 32 days, then you can still cancel it, but they will likely charge you as a customer. Okay, common question number 3. Common question number 3 that we get is, when I train for my product training credit, is that the only product or service I'm allowed to sell? And the answer is no. Okay, when you're training for your product training credit, this is just to get you acclimated with the process and the system that is associated with working for these advertising networks. Once you get your product training credit number 1, you are allowed to sell and promote any of the products or services listed there. So don't worry about, I want to train with this one, but I would love to sell this. Once you get your 1.0 product training credit, you are cleared to sell any and all products you so choose. And this is because at this point, the advertising networks have confidence that you understand the system good enough to sell the other products and services. Once you go through getting your product training credit number 1, this process is the same regardless of who's completing it. The product or service may be different, but the process behind it is the same. And this is why the advertising network requires that every single employee or agent they have working for them does their product training credit at some point or another within their employment. I myself have done product training credits. Our Chief Operating Officer Will Sanders has done product training credits, and even company CEO Gospel Jackson has done product training credits. This is nothing new, but once you've done it once, you will not have to do it again. Okay? So if you're with me still, if you're ready to go and get started with your phase 2, if you've probably already headed out to do your phase 2, but if you're still here and you're about to go and get your phase 2 done, your product training credit number 1, please type I in the chat if you're ready to move forward into our phase 2. Thank you for those who are still sticking around. To those of you who are over on the other page or window completing the necessary information, remember you have about somewhere around in the 20 to 30 minute mark to get this process complete. While you are completing this phase, make sure that you are keeping note of the product or service you choose. Make sure you take note of the trial length, and make sure you take note of how much the product or service costs. Okay, you want to have notes on all of this. And I repeat again, if you complete your first product training credit before we continue forward with phase 3, be sure to check your email for that confirmation receipt, because it'll be very important if for some reason your credit does not come through within the next 24 hours. With that being said, again, guys, 20 to 30 minutes to get phase 2 complete, which is just completing your product training credit number 1. Please do not try to go above and beyond and do 2 or 3 product training credits. You are here to just get 1 product training credit, okay? There is a reason behind why we train you like this through the fast track system. So please adhere to that system if you want to see the expected results that we want each and every one of you to have. So 1 product training credit, 20 to 30 minutes to complete it. I will be back shortly. If you are up to par where we're at right now, you know that this is phase 2 and we have 1 more phase left. So we're rounding the corner. We're, coming down the home stretch. We're entering the 4th quarter. Whatever inspirational metaphor you like to associate yourself with almost being finished, know that now is the time to use it, because right after this short little break between phase 2 and 3, we're going to get through the easiest phase. But as I keep repeating, it is still the most important. 15 to 30 minutes tops on phase 2. We will continue in 15 to 30 minutes. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And how was that? Was phase 2 as hard as you thought it was? I know a lot of times people come in thinking, oh, this was so hard, so complicated, I didn't understand it, until they actually get into doing it and they come out saying, wow, that really wasn't too bad. All right. So for those of you who are complete so far with your product training credit number 1, if you completed all the information, you left your windows up after you completed the information, and you return back over to the webinar, please type ready in the chat. Okay. If you're there and you're ready to move forward into our final phase for today, which is the identification verification, please type ready in the chat. Ready, type I, type go, type go Rob, go, type whatever you feel like it, because this is really the last and final phase of national registration, and we're going to make it very, very easy. We're going to make it super easy for you to get through. So let's recap. Let's go back to our welcome email and just recap everything we've done so far. If you were here since the beginning, the very first thing we did is we went over and we saw what the Affluentry Connection Center has in store. Already, a lot of you should have already been introduced to the Affluentry Connection Center. If you haven't, make sure you go over there and you visit that immediately following this webinar, because every single tool you need to be successful in this business is available at the Affluentry Connection Center. After we talked about that, we moved into phase 1, which was step 2 in my welcome email, and that was just registering for the advertising network. So you remember, that's when we went over on the landing page, and once we got there, we entered our basic information and we clicked register. After that, we moved right ahead into step 3, which was our phase 2, and that was getting your first product training credit. And if you see here, you see this welcome email really walks hand in hand with what we did through today's registration, but it's always a little easier when you have someone there to guide you. So this is the phase we just completed. This was our phase 2, and that was getting your first product training credit, which was where you found a product or service that you liked, and really you were out there to get that 1.00 product training credit. Okay, that 1.00 credit. Now, if you completed your product training credit and it didn't show up immediately, please allow up to 24 hours for that to populate there. But if you completed it and you have that confirmation receipt that I referred to, and if you're not familiar, that should be in your email. But once you get that confirmation receipt, you're good to go. So even if your credit has not shown up there, allow it 24 hours. And if at that point it doesn't show up, contact your supervisor and they'll be able to guide you through doing what we call a missing credit request. After all that said and done, is on to our final step in our example welcome email here, and that is submitting identification to the advertising network for verification. Okay, in short, what you're going to do here is you're going to submit 2 forms of valid ID to the advertising network so they can verify who you are. As you can see here, right below the information I have, you can block out your social security number, driver's license, all that stuff. They strongly do not want you to send in social security. Actually, what will most likely work is your license/ID and a piece of mail. Okay, license/ID and a piece of mail will get it done. If you're the type that doesn't want to have your driver's license number out there, you can cover that up. It's perfectly fine. But you are going to need 2 pieces of valid identification. For your ID verification, what you're going to do, again, as I've stated earlier, is very, very easy. You're going to take a picture of your ID, a picture of a piece of mail, and you're going to email it in to the support email that relates to your advertising network. So if you're with IR Instant Rewards, you're going to send it to the first one. If you're with Orlu to Boot, also known as OL2B, you're going to use that email. And if you're with Free Treasure Chest, you're going to use the Free Treasure Chest email. Once you send this email in, really that is it for your ID verification. And again, this email just needs to include your ID, piece of mail, and write your name at the top. You don't need to send them a paragraph. Just Robert Travis, for example, Robert Travis personal information, or Robert Travis ID verification. Send that to them and you're good to go. Okay, don't look for a response. And in actuality, the only time they really respond to these ID verifications is if something is wrong. Most likely because these companies hire, really an abundant amount of people per day. So because of that, they really don't respond to these all the time. So don't look forward to a response from that. But if you do, make sure you do read it. I know out there already, we have someone with the common question. It happens every single day. Don't feel bad. And the question is, well, Robert or Rob, what happens if, the address on my ID doesn't match the address on my piece of mail? That is perfectly fine. For example, in my case, I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I currently live in Los Angeles, California. Don't ask me. I'm a workaholic, so I haven't had the time to get my ID switched over. So I still have my license that says Pennsylvania, even though I've been in California for a considerable amount of time now. So because of that, if I were to submit my ID verification, I would send in a picture of my PA license, and I would send in a picture of my California piece of mail and just briefly describe there to whom it may concern, the reason why my license address doesn't match my home address is because I recently moved to California, but my current address is the California one, which is XYZ. That is all you need to say. So whatever your situation is, you're in school, you just moved, your home burned down, you moved to a bigger house, you moved to an apartment, whatever the situation is as to why your two pieces of identification don't match, briefly describe it in a few sentences. They don't need a whole book, just a few sentences describing why the two addresses don't match, and send it off, and you're good to go. That's it. And as you see here, your phase 3 checklist is very small. You're going to take a picture of your photo ID and piece of mail. You're going to email it to the specific network email and include your name in the subject. Once you've done that, once you've sent that off, guess what? You have completed the Affluentry Network national registration. That's it. Remember, 3 phases, and that was the third one. So just to reiterate our 3 phases of what we did today, that very first was we registered for the advertising network. After we registered for the advertising network, we went ahead and got our product training credit number 1. And following product training credit number 1, we finished up here today with doing our ID verification. If you have completed this ID verification, you have completed our Affluentry Network national registration. And it is now time for you to do the final phase 3 checklist, which is contacting your supervisor. You want to contact your supervisor. You want to say, hey, I just finished up with national registration over there with Robert, and I'm ready to move forward. Okay, I'm ready to get into training, because that's what's next. Coming up next behind this, you have national training, and that's with our Chief Operating Officer, Ashton Will Sanders. Will is an awesome trainer. He's one of my great mentors, and he's really going to dive you into what goes on at the Affluentry Connection Center and how you can utilize those tools to be productive and be profitable in this business. So you definitely want to make it over to national training with Ashton Sanders. Ladies and gentlemen, please, I hope that you have gathered and gained all of the nuggets and information here for your registration. If need be, please come back and re-follow through with the national registration webinar, just so you can really be hip and up to date and fresh with how to get through doing your first product training credit. Okay, will also break down how to get involved with your product training credit number 2, if your supervisor doesn't already introduce it to you at the conclusion of our registration. So however that plays out, look forward to finding out more about your product training credit number 2. But for right now, if you've completed all the phases that are available here, you've already knocked out your first product training credit, and now you're ready to go off and make some money. So congratulations, a big clap and a big pound on the back to you. Way to go. Good job, ladies and gents. And again, like I said, it is now time for you to contact your supervisor. So this concludes our Affluentry Network national registration. If you have any more questions, please contact your supervisor. If you do not have a supervisor, please contact our lead supervisor. Her name is Ashley Parker. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I do look forward to seeing each and every one of you blossom into your own success. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you over at the Affluentry Connection Center. And I really want to say congratulations on taking the second of 3 steps necessary to get involved with the Affluentry family and start making your own income from home. My name is Robert Travis, your favorite CMO, and I shall see you in the training site. Until then, God bless, and I love you all in spirit. Have a great one.